Thanks for coming. So December the 9th, for our union, AFT, and for a coalition of scores of unions and community groups around the country, is a day of action. And so on this occasion, we want to look forward to some of the things that we're going to be doing this year to reclaim the promise of early childhood education, of public higher education, and of healthcare. And so I'm going to ask Nan to come up and say a few things about early childhood education.
Morning, my name is Nan Reed, and I'm an early educator who cares for and educates 7 children here in Burlington so their parents can go to work and school. Today is about reclaiming the promise, and I'd like to tell you what this means for early educators. It's time to reclaim the promise for early childhood care and education, not as it is today or as it was in the past, but as it can be. To fulfill our collective obligation to guarantee every child and family has access to affordable, high-quality early childhood programs. Decades of experience and evidence show that one of the most effective ways to improve education and economic outcomes for all children is to provide high-quality early learning experiences that set the stage for a lifetime of learning. Providers in the state have been organizing for 4 years for that right to organize. The right to organize and negotiate collectively is a basic right that we are currently barred from exercising. We are predominantly women who care for and educate children from birth to age 5. Many of us also care for and educate school-age children before and after school. We see working families who struggle because the state does not provide adequate support for quality care and education. Providers are forced to bear the burden of inadequate support. We received a 3% increase. This was the first year in 10 years that provider payments from the state were increased at all. We have built a strong statewide organization of providers, and we're looking forward to the legislature passing a law that would allow us to organize, as 14 other state legislatures have recently done. This summer, Rhode Island passed the right to organize, and last month, Massachusetts providers negotiated their first contract with their state. It's Vermont's turn. I'm now going to turn the microphone over to Judy Pransky, one of my colleagues from Cabot, to give 2 awards to our state champions, Senate champions.
Hi, I'm Judy Pransky. I've been an educator for 47 years. For the past 28 years, I have owned and directed child care programs in St. Johnsbury and Cabot, Vermont. And I'm a strong advocate of our union and our right to organize. Although 14 states have passed legislation that would give providers the right to choose to bargain collectively, Vermont has yet to do so. Today, as we organize to reclaim the promise, we want to honor 2 of our champions. We have one here, but 2 of our champions in the Senate who have stood by us and are continuing to fight for Vermont early educators to have the basic right to organize and negotiate, Senator Dick McCormick and Senator Philip Baruth. These and other senators have stood with us while we have traveled to the State House over the past several years to ask for the right to organize ourselves into a union. Senator Baruth and McCormick have made a commitment to us that they will do whatever they can to get the bill passed this year. We appreciate their commitment to our effort, to our colleagues, and to the workers, all workers across the state. We know how critical it is to have legislators who understand why the right to organize is so important, and who will stand with us and fight for this right. We want to recognize these 2 senators for their work and their commitment to Vermont early educators. We thank them from our hearts, and we present them with these small tokens of our appreciation. Senator Dick McCormick was not able to join us today, but we celebrate his work and commitment. Senator Baruth, would you like to say a few words?
I would, thank you.
Good.
So this is the first award I have ever won as a legislator. I'm very, very honored. I'd like to just begin with a few words about Dick McCormick. You all know Senator McCormick. I don't need to tell you, but just to tell people who don't know him so well, he is absolutely a union man to the core. And to the extent that on the floor of the Senate, when we're debating union legislation, he will walk around humming Seeger tunes about the union. And that's been a great bit of mentoring for me. So it's good to see somebody who is out front with their support of unionization and his belief, which mirrors my own, that unions are the way we build a strong middle class and keep that middle class. So just a little bit about this year and last year. Last year we had what I consider to be something of a banner year for unions in general in Vermont. We passed the fair share legislation. We enabled the creation of the state's largest union for home care workers. We had some real success stories. The early childhood education union wasn't one of those success stories. It got stalled as it had the previous year. And what I'm starting to feel is something like Groundhog Day. And not just in terms of this particular bill, but of the situation that faces the legislature in general. So when I came in my first year, there was a $100+ million gap. This year, there's a $72 million gap. And each of those years that I've been in the legislature, that gap has been part of the rationale for why we can't do this or why we can't do that. I see it completely differently. In a budget situation like we have, in a lingering Great Recession, what people need more than anything is help with their bottom line. And no one needs it more than this group of workers, the people who take care of and educate our children at their most formative years. So I am committed this year to trying to see this bill make it through the Senate. I am committed additionally to some other union legislation. For instance, the Deputy State's Attorney organization was working for unionization last time. I'm hopeful that that will go forward too. What I will remind everybody, to go back to Groundhog Day, is Bill Murray can't get out of that loop that he's in until he learns actually to be attentive and helpful and compassionate to the people around him. Once he does, oddly enough, the world becomes a better place. So hopefully that's where we are this session, and I hope to work with all of you on it. And thank you again.
I'm Chris Smith. I'm a faculty member at Vermont Technical College in the English, Humanities, and Social Sciences Department. And I'm also proud to be the Vice President of the Vermont State Colleges Faculty Federation. Vermont State Colleges Faculty Federation is one of the oldest unionized organizations in higher education in the country. And we're proud to have a platform that supports reclaiming the promise. State-supported higher education provides opportunities for children of working families to earn a degree and live a middle-class life. State colleges and universities also provide workers opportunities to further their careers with affordable continuing education and certifications. Vermont State Colleges Faculty Federation has announced a platform that is 3 points, and I'll cover those real quick. Because we need to help more Vermonters reclaim the promise of higher education. The first point is that we need to increase Vermont's investment in our state colleges and our university. Investment in higher education is an investment in Vermont. Vermont is next to last place in the nation with regards to investment in state higher education. And with our current funding at only 8.5% of the operating budgets of UVM and the Vermont State Colleges. AFT Vermont supports moving over the next 10 years towards funding levels for Vermont higher education back to 1980 levels. That would be around 51%. The second point of the platform is to offer students options for funding for college that do not depend on the student loan industry. AFT Vermont supports efforts that will reduce overall student debt in Vermont, especially efforts that mean fewer Vermont students being attached to the student loan industry. And finally, the third point is AFT Vermont supports spending more higher education dollars on students. AFT encourages the Vermont legislature to take steps to reduce excessive upper management costs within the VSC and UVM and put into place accountability measures that ensure that more of our state investment is spent directly on students and on tuition, on lowering tuition expenses. So thank you. With that, I turn it over to my colleague from UVM.
Thank you, Chris. I'm David Scheinman. I'm a professor of education at UVM and also past president of the Faculty Union United Academics. Just building off a few comments that Chris made, I sort of see this as a sort of a pay now or pay later situation. when I think about this in terms of the legislature, and think about the cost to the state of not increasing the percentage allocated for higher education. I mean, some of the universities, the University of Vermont, for example, provides close to 50% of the students who come to UVM from Vermont, Vermonters, come tuition free. That's a substantial improvement, but that doesn't cover a lot of the other expenses that they have, and it still doesn't make us competitive enough to attract a lot of students who go out of state. So we're dealing with a situation here, I think, in our state, where the legislature needs to make a commitment to increase the number of students, increase the finances that come to the university, to affect the issues of what becomes the out-migration of students who, in fact, don't come back. They go out overseas, over other places to study, and then don't come back. So we lose them. We have to compete with other states, and if we want to attract companies and corporations here, which means keeping our universities strong, so that other economic organizations want to come to Vermont because they have a good university that they can draw on resources. That also affects attracting students to come to the University of Vermont and to hold them there. So I think there's a commitment that if we do those things, or we pay later on, with the students not being here and not having a resource base to draw on, to build up the economy in Vermont. So I think I share Chris's concerns about the other items, and I won't bother repeating them, but I think one thing just to keep in mind is we're not just talking about economic returns on education. We're talking about the preparation of an educated citizenry. We're talking in the Thomas Jefferson tradition, when he talked about higher education and talked about the need to have a population who is educated and informed in order to do the business of citizenry in the state. And that is essential, as well as the economic dimension, which ends up dominating most of the conversations. So, thank you. Maury Coggins from Health.
Thank you, David. My name is Mari Cordes. I have been a nurse for more than 25 years, currently a nurse educator at Fletcher Allen Healthcare, and the president of Vermont Federation of Nurses and Health Professionals. And we represent more than 2,000 healthcare professionals of many kinds. This is a day of action to demand not only an education, but a new direction for healthcare. That we have a system that provides quality care for all, not a commodity market that puts profits above the well-being of people. Reclaiming the Promise is about ensuring that frontline health caregivers and staff are well prepared and supported so that they can provide high-quality care to the communities that they love. Reclaiming the Promise is about protecting public health and ensuring that individuals and families can access health care when they need it, and not have to go to work because they will lose pay or their job. That is why our healthcare members support paid sick days legislation in Vermont. It is good for people and good for business. The Promise is under attack by those who demand and pursue profitization, privatization, and deprofessionalization of health services. Every day here at home, in our institutions, and abroad when needed, healthcare workers keep their promise to provide compassionate, safe, and quality care. And as we did with those impacted by the earthquake in Haiti, Tropical Storm Irene in Vermont, and Tropical Storm Sandy, our members are again keeping their promise by donating their time and skills in the Philippines. More than 50 healthcare workers have already volunteered. More than $4,500 has been raised, and the first team deployed yesterday. We are also committed firmly to a single-payer, universal, publicly financed healthcare system in Vermont. Not exchanges, as other states and Vermont have been directed by the Federal Affordable Care Act, but a true universal system, independent of employment, for all that live in Vermont. And we know, and we have proven this with projects and initiatives and legislation that we've worked on with our elected leaders, that we can accomplish this, because with our united voices and with our communities, we can reclaim the promise.
So that's the end of our prepared remarks here. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to chat.